You keep calling it kindness. No, that's not what this is. Kindness is beautiful. Kindness has dignity. Kindness has limits. But you made yourself available at every hour, for every wound, for every broken person who knew exactly how to find you when they were lonely, and exactly how to forget you when they felt whole again. That's why it hurts so much, doesn't it? Because deep down, you were never being loved. You were being used, politely. They didn't respect your heart. They respected your access, your quick replies, your open door, your endless forgiveness, your soft voice, your "it's okay," your "don't worry about it," your habit of staying when you should have walked away. And now you sit there confused, wondering why the people you gave the most to always gave you the least. Because you were never too nice. You were just too available. You know what people like that do? They study you. Not like a scholar studies a book. No. Like hunger studies a door left open. They notice how quickly you answer, how easily you say yes, how your face changes when someone sounds hurt, how you start blaming yourself before anyone even asks you to. And once they learn that, once they learn you will bend just to keep the peace, they stop knocking. They just walk into your time, into your thoughts, into your sleep, into your chest. And the cruel part is, you help them do it. You call it patience. You call it loyalty. You call it seeing the good in people. But sometimes that thing you call love is just fear wearing perfume. Fear of being abandoned. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear that if you stop giving, you will finally see who never cared. So you keep smiling when you're tired. Keep explaining when they already understood. Keep forgiving what keeps happening on purpose. And every piece of you grows quieter. Listen carefully. People do not always respect the one who gives the most. They respect the one who knows when to close the door. And you left it open so long they started calling your sacrifice normal. And the cruel part is, you knew. Not all at once, not in some dramatic, thunderstruck revelation, no. You knew in tiny little funerals, in the late replies, in the dry tone, in the way they needed you privately but barely honored you publicly. You knew when your absence made them anxious, but your presence never made them grateful. You knew when every conversation somehow circled back to their pain, their chaos, their needs, their hunger, and your heart just adapted again and again and again. Because that's what you do, right? You adjust, you excuse, you translate disrespect into maybe they're just struggling. You turn neglect into patience. You turn scraps into hope. And That is how people slowly teach you to betray yourself with a smile. You started calling self-abandonment loyalty, started calling overgiving love, started calling silence maturity, when really you were just afraid that one honest boundary would make them leave. So you kept the door open, even when they slammed it, even when they vanished, even when they returned with empty hands and familiar lies. And every return felt like proof that maybe this time they saw your worth. But no, it was only proof that they knew the door was still unlocked. Do you understand how heartbreaking that is? To be remembered, not for your depth, not for your soul, not for your truth, but for your availability, for being the safe option, the soft landing, the unpaid therapist, the warm voice at midnight, the person who would still answer after being ignored all day. That isn't love. That is emotional convenience wearing the mask of connection. And the saddest thing, you kept thinking more love would fix it. No, less access would have. Because people rarely stop at the line you never draw. They keep taking. Not always because they're monsters, not always because they hate you, sometimes because your silence teaches them there is no cost. And human beings, they are very quick students when comfort is free. So they learn your patterns. They learn that guilt works on you, that sadness works on you, that distance works on you, that one cold reply can make you overthink for hours, and one tiny bit of warmth can make you forgive what should never have happened in the first place. They learn that all they have to do is disappear long enough for your fear to ripen, and then return softly. And you welcome them back like your heart has forgotten what your chest remembers. That is exhaustion. That is grief. That is what happens when a soul keeps offering mercy to people who only come near when they need shelter from themselves. Listen carefully. The person who only values you when access is easy does not value you. The person who only remembers your tenderness when life bruises them does not love you. The person who keeps you close but never keeps you secure does not deserve your softness. Because softness is sacred. Time is sacred. Attention is sacred. Your presence is not some public building with the lights always on. You were not born to become a waiting room for confused people. You were not created to be emotionally on call for anyone who knows the password to your compassion. And the longer you stay endlessly available, the more invisible your value becomes. Scarcity reveals worth. Silence reveals truth. Distance reveals intentions. Because the ones who care will feel your absence with respect, and the ones who used you will feel it like inconvenience. That difference will save your life. And that is the part nobody teaches you when you're young. They tell you to be kind, to be patient, to forgive, to understand, to stay soft in a hard world. Beautiful advice. Beautiful. Until it lands in the hands of people who confuse softness with permission. Because without boundaries, kindness becomes an invitation to interrupt you, to unload on you, to disappear and return whenever it suits them. to treat your peace like something cheap, something renewable, something that will always be there no matter how recklessly they consume it. And every time you let it pass, every time you say, "It's fine," every time you silence that ache in your chest just to keep the connection alive, you send a message. Not with your mouth, with your tolerance. You tell them, "Yes, you may do this again. Yes, I will still be here. Yes, my hurt is quieter than your comfort. Yes, my boundaries can be negotiated by guilt." And then one day you wake up tired in a way sleep cannot fix. Not because you loved too deeply, because you abandoned yourself too often. That's the grief nobody sees. The private humiliation of realizing you were loyal to people who were merely familiar, accessible to people who were never accountable, devoted to people who only ever offered temporary warmth. And temporary warmth is dangerous. It can make a starving heart mistake relief for home. So you cling, not because it is good, not because it is pure, but because inconsistency creates hunger, and hunger makes even crumbs feel holy. But listen, crumbs are still crumbs. Half love is still absence. Occasional tenderness is still instability. And being remembered only in moments of need is still a form of neglect. You cannot keep calling it love when your spirit only exists there in pieces. You cannot keep calling it connection when you are the one carrying all the weight. You cannot keep calling yourself too nice as if this is some charming flaw, when really it is a wound. A wound that says, "Please don't leave, even if staying destroys me." And that wound will keep choosing pain until you finally decide that being needed is not the same as being cherished. And once that truth enters you, really enters you, you will never offer your presence so cheaply again. Because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The pattern, the timing, the convenient affection, the almost love, the way some people only become gentle when they feel you slipping away. Isn't that insulting? Not that they were incapable of kindness, no. It's that they saved it for emergencies. For the moment your silence scared them. For the night your distance made them wonder whether the door had finally closed. For the hour they felt your warmth pulling back and realized, perhaps a little too late, that they had mistaken your constancy for permanence. And then they come closer. Softer voice, kinder words, sudden depth, sudden effort, sudden confusion about why you changed. But you didn't change. You just stopped bleeding in public. That's what unsettles people. Not your pain, not your exhaustion, not the 1,000 quiet nights you spent trying to make sense of why you were always enough to need, but never enough to protect. What unsettles them is when access begins to disappear, when the instant replies slow down, when the emotional labor dries up, when your availability, that sweet, endless river they drank from without gratitude, suddenly becomes stone. And then then they finally feel what you felt all along: uncertainty. Not because you became cruel, not because you became cold, not because you turned into something ugly, but because you finally learned that love without limits turns into self-erasure. Do you know how many people ruin themselves trying to be understood by those who were only ever interested in being accommodated? How many beautiful souls waste years translating their worth into smaller, softer, easier shapes, just so they can remain lovable to people who never planned to love them correctly? Too many, far too many. And maybe that is why your chest feels so heavy now. Not only because of what they did, but because some part of you knows you helped them do it. You held the line open. You reopened doors that should have stayed closed. You gave explanations where silence would have protected you. You kept offering grace to people who treated your mercy like a refill. And that realization, it stings. Because now the grief is not just about losing them. It is about meeting the version of yourself who accepted too little, explained too much, waited too long, and called it love because the truth felt unbearable. But the truth is not here to destroy you. It is here to free you. To teach you that your presence was never meant to be constantly available to everyone who knocks with empty hands and urgent feelings. Your presence is sacred. Your softness is sacred. Your listening, your patience, your tenderness, your late-night understanding, sacred. And sacred things are not supposed to be left unattended. So let them call you distant. Let them call you changed. Let them say you are harder to reach now. Good. Some lessons only arrive when your absence becomes louder than your generosity ever was. And the ones who only loved your availability, they will call your self-respect an attitude. Let them. Because people become offended the moment your access is no longer automatic. Isn't that strange? They could ignore your effort, minimize your pain, arrive empty, leave